When your loved one passes away, there's 6 people you need to know right away. I'm Natalie Terry. I'm here with local attorney Sabrina Winters, and we're here to talk with you about estate planning in Charlotte, North Carolina, and some things that you might not already know. What is the number one question that you get asked about estate planning?
The number one question probably has to be, why do I need it?
That's a great question.
Why do I need it?
Right.
And, my answer is, it's because none of us know when we're going to pass away. One definite that we all share. We will all pass away at some point, at some time, and we just never know when. I've got clients who are young. I've had clients who are elderly. It doesn't matter. You have to plan for the thing that you can't control. Yeah. It's not the what if, it's the when.
Yeah. And thank you for that, Sabrina. I think we've heard the joke for many, many years. There's 2 things that are for sure in life, right? Death and taxes. And I know this is tax season, so maybe the death part isn't really strong on your mind right now, but now's a really good time to really talk about estate planning. And the best time to do it is before you need it.
Exactly. Before an emergency, before you need it.
Yep. So tell us, Sabrina, when a loved one passes away, what is the best way to protect their assets?
Well, the best way is before they pass away.
Okay.
So you want to plan with, you essentially you have 3 options. You do nothing, you do a will, or you do a revocable trust.
Okay.
Doing nothing should not be anybody's choice. It doesn't matter if you're married, divorced, single, with kids, no kids, retired, empty nester, it does not matter.
Okay.
But you want to plan outside of an emergency.
Okay.
Always. We don't make the best decisions, right? When we are pressed for time, pressed for urgency, you want that thought out process and making sure that everything is written down. So I would first say do it way before you absolutely need it. Because once you pass away, you can't do anything anymore. Carolina has essentially written our will. If we don't have something in writing, they're deciding not only who gets what, but when and how much.
Wow.
And oftentimes it's not the people that you would have wanted to have it, or at least not in that percentage or that amount.
That makes sense. So I think what I hear you saying is that if someone passes away without a will, then the state gets to determine what happens to their assets, to their belongings, to all of it.
It's already in the statutes.
Okay.
The misconception is, North Carolina is going to take it. North Carolina does not take it. Okay. North Carolina decides who's going to be in those assets and how. Okay. It's called intestate. It's not where you want to be.
Okay. So they can do nothing.
Correct.
They can file a will, right? And do some planning. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, and you would say filing a will is the best way to protect their assets, right?
I would definitely say writing a will or writing a revocable trust are the only 2 options you have.
Okay, very good. Now, this is a question that I get a lot as an agent. Do you have to file documents at the courthouse when someone passes away?
So you're probably going to get annoyed with my constant answer to these questions, but it depends.
Okay.
It depends on what the estate looks like. It depends on what the will said. Okay. It depends on how the assets were owned together, joint with rights of survivorship. Were there beneficiaries? Was there real estate? Yeah. That's a big deal. When there's real estate in an estate, that changes the game sometimes from we don't need to do anything to we need to put something in the court to start settling this estate. Okay. So it depends, but most of the time, yes, you need to open an estate.
Okay, very good. And talk to us a little bit about, what does opening an estate mean? Okay. Because some people don't know what that means either. So
and most people shouldn't know what that means, right?
Unless we don't really want to know.
No, you really don't. You want somebody who knows what they're doing to do that for you. Opening an estate just means if there was a will, you're filing the original will, usually the original, with the court, and supplying the court with some initial documents to prove the death, the person who's appointed, name the beneficiaries, and an oath. That's the very basic. Now, when you use an attorney who knows what they're doing and has experience, they're gonna have you do a few other documents that are for in-house usually, but that's just to help the estate move forward a lot easier and smoother.
Okay.
If that even exists, doing a probate. That's what you do. You file it so that the court can appoint the right person to be able to collect the assets and follow the wishes of the decedent.
Okay.
And that's the authority. They get a one-page document that authorizes them to do what they have to do with the assets in the estate.
Okay, great. Okay, so in North Carolina, what happens to the deceased person's assets when they die without a will? And I know this might sound like a redundant question.
It's not.
But I think it's important.
Yeah, it's important because a lot of what happens in the probate court. So let me back up a second. Probate is the process through the court. It's called the probate process.
Okay.
Is what you have to do when somebody passes away.
Yeah.
And when this estate is open and somebody is authorized to transact on the assets and do the business of the estate, they may not have to do a lot or they may have to do a lot. A lot of it depends on were assets owned joint with rights of survivorship.
Okay.
Were assets, did they have named beneficiaries on them, and are those beneficiaries alive?
Yeah.
Was the real estate owned as a married couple? Because as you know very well, it's a very special ownership in North Carolina. Or, were minors named? I've seen that. I've seen minors named as beneficiaries on life insurance policies and qualified accounts like IRAs and 401ks.
Wow.
So it's going to depend what happens on what these assets look like.
Okay, that makes good sense.
Yeah.
So, who are the top 5 people that whenever your loved one passes away, right? They're grieving, right? And they're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do first? Who do I need to call, right? Mom had a will or dad had a will. So I've got this will, but now what do I do?
Yeah.
And I've got a house that maybe still has a mortgage on it, right? So, I think we should talk about a little bit about that. You know, who do they need to be in touch with right away to make sure that they have a smooth process and that they can continue to grieve and know that things are taken care of?
So a lot of the taking the things off the table is what they've done before.
Okay, fair
so
enough.
The more planning they're doing, the more conversations they're having with their healthcare agents, their executors, their trustees, the more organized they are with their assets, the more it's going to help the person settling the estate.
Yeah.
And so, number one, if there was a will, you have to call the attorney.
Okay.
Because I don't hold original wills. I just don't think it's fair. I think families should have the choice, on who to use when somebody passes. But the goal is that it's a long-term relationship, and I am helping. So I don't have originals, but call the attorney. Find out what you have to do. Have that meeting. Definitely don't try to do it on your own.
Fair.
Ever.
Oftentimes, I want you to say it again.
Okay. Don't ever do it without an attorney. Don't do it by yourself. The reason I say that is because having to undo errors that you justifiably don't know they were,
right,
could be more costly and more time consuming, but also risk the assets.
Right.
So definitely make that phone call. If there is real estate, you do want to speak to a realtor because we never know what the market is like.
Right.
If you can solidify a potential buyer sooner rather than later and get the estate open, then that benefits everybody involved. Again, you don't want to list a real estate on your own. You don't want to do it for sale by owner because especially when somebody dies.
Oh my God.
You have got to get that estate opened because there is a special time limit.
Okay.
For when you can sell without any issues.
Fair.
So your lawyer's going to explain that to you, but they also have to communicate that to your broker and your agent because they're helping with that process.
Fair.
We can't do each other's jobs.
Right.
So we stay in our lanes and get that done. So it's an attorney, it's a real estate agent. I don't always suggest that they call the mortgage company. Not yet.
Right.
Just
not yet.
Unfortunately, someone's got to keep paying the mortgage.
Yeah, so please keep paying the mortgage.
Yes.
I think that's the number one question that I get. a lot. Do I need to keep paying the mortgage?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is yes. That's very important because you don't want the house to get foreclosed on.
Right.
While you're trying to figure out what your next steps are going to be.
Exactly. And the bank doesn't care who they're foreclosing on, whether the person is alive or they're foreclosing on the estate.
Yeah.
And if you don't get that guidance right away at the beginning, you may think that, well, we're going to sell it in a couple of months. I don't want to go out of pocket. And oftentimes that's the problem.
Yeah. That
people don't have the mortgage money to pay for somebody else's mortgage, and those would be the beneficiaries. That pre-planning, just something maybe in lieu of a will and doing a trust, oftentimes alleviates that dilemma. That's and that burden that's put on families. My pockets are only so deep.
Right.
I can't. I want the house, but I can't afford to keep it right now. So
yeah.
Selling may be their only option, which is maybe not what they really wanted.
Right. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. So, so we've talked about wills.
Yeah.
We've talked about estate planning. We've talked about a couple of people that you should know right away, right?
Mm-hmm.
An attorney. We should know a real estate broker.
I would also call the CPA.
CPA.
Because you have to file your loved one's last tax return if they were supposed to be filing.
Okay.
That's something that you need to do. And again, that goes back to organization. You don't want to pull one out of your out of your hat. It would be nice to know who that CPA or accountant was that was helping your loved one, because that transition into that final tax return is going to be much smoother.
Now, so that's an important piece. One of the questions that I get asked regularly is about the value of the house at the time of the loved one's passing.
Yeah.
So, on my end, I always recommend we have an appraiser for that piece. Now, and I want to talk for just a moment about the difference between an appraiser and what a realtor does, right? Because people don't really know, but as a realtor, we go in and we can value the property based on what the market is doing, and that is our job. It is to value the property for market value. Right? An appraiser's job is to render an opinion of value at that particular moment in time. The difference for an appraiser, so we all use the same data, right? We all use the tax records, we all use the MLS, so we all have access to the same data. The difference is the appraiser is able to issue a valuation that has a seal on it that says that is an official value of that particular day, and that value can be upheld in court. Am I right, Sabrina? And that's why they do that.
That is correct. Sometimes a valuation is required.
Right.
But as far as probate documents are concerned, we just take the fair market value on that day.
Right.
Just really generally speaking, we call somebody like you and say, hey, if we were to sell in the month of their passing, what do you think it would be?
Right.
Most of the time, I just take the tax value off of the tax records because we have to have a basis
for sure
to show, and that once it's with the court, that's a starting point, because we want them to pay minimal
in
taxes whenever possible.
Agreed. Yeah. So going back, I think the reason that I brought up the appraiser, though, and tell me if you agree, is because sometimes people wait. They wait like a couple of years, and then they need to sell the property, and they get a request to find out what the value was, maybe for tax reasons, what the value was at the time of the loved one's passing.
Yeah.
So I think that's where really the appraiser comes in more so than the agent.
Yeah, but I like the fact that you get it pretty close to passing.
Yeah.
Because the further away you get, the harder it's going to be to get a true valuation.
Yeah.
And when the beneficiaries sell, they're going to sell it, and they're going to on a stepped up basis.
Right.
So the better valuation is going to be closer to when the person has passed. Better and more accurate.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So let's talk a little bit about personal belongings.
Well, the stuff in their house.
The stuff. Yeah. Right. So I think that's a challenge for a lot of people, because there's loved ones that want to come in and get things and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
And
I've
then,
seen that.
And then there's others that are like, oh my gosh, I just got to clear out the house. So is there a guideline, or is there a rule of thumb? Is there some advice that you might be able to give to people here that maybe would help them kind of know what might be the best step?
Always read the document.
Okay.
If there's a will, you have to read the will. If there's a revocable trust, you have to read the revocable trust.
Okay.
That's where everything stems from.
Okay.
Now, if they don't have either one of those, then you have to look at the statutes for North Carolina, and we have to figure out who has the right to everything.
Okay.
Because it's going to be based on who's alive at that time. So always read the document before you make any distributions, or families coming over and they're looking around at things. Oh, I would like that. I would like that.
Yeah.
But if it's something in writing and you give it to somebody who's not entitled
not supposed
to it,
to have it. Oh,
how
boy.
hard is it going to be to get it back?
Yeah.
So always read the document first before giving anything away.
Very good. I think that's a great tip. Great advice. So, as far as when people start, disposing of things and whatnot, sometimes they call me and they'll ask for, do you have somebody that can help us move, or do you have somebody that can help us with getting rid of certain special collections? Have you ever had people with big
appraisers,
collections, collectibles? So if you have collectibles, we have people that we can connect you with that can help value those pieces. So I think those are specialists, right?
Yes.
In their field.
And things that have a higher dollar amount, it's always better, in my opinion, to get something in writing.
Okay.
Because I'm stepping in and I'm helping the executor or the administrator. So my job and my role is to protect that person's interests.
Right.
I don't want anybody coming back even years down the road to say, hey, that really wasn't valued at that. Well, yes, it was. Here's the writing.
There you go.
Here's the proof. And unfortunately, that's what it is. I don't want my executor or administrator to have to deal with something like that in the future.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, when I say specialists in valuations, that can be a reputable jeweler.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe. Or it can be somebody that, specializes in certain kinds of collections.
Yeah. Gun appraisers.
Yeah.
I had to do that on several estates, because what's valuable to me is $1 amount in my mind.
Right.
But in reality, it's something different. So, just like anything else, I might love this chair so much more because it's got meaning to me. Right. And you're like, it's a $20 chair. Who cares? Right. So you have to value the emotions that are in some of these things too, that play on people.
And that's always very hard.
Oh yes.
Right. Yes. Yes.
It's hard, and people are so emotional, right?
They are.
When somebody passes away, even months down the road, somebody dies and your whole world is. It's upside down for a really long time. And having to deal with all these little things, it's always good to have those people already, available and accessible, and know how to get a hold of them.
I would agree.
Yeah. Makes it easier.
So, any other folks that they should know? Maybe an estate person. Maybe you've got some things you want to sell. Right? Yeah. So, to me, that's kind of in the specialist category.
It is. I agree. I agree.
Because we're talking about belongings and personal property.
And I think, I know when they hire me and hire you, we have a lot of people that we are connected with, not business connected, but we know who we would trust our clients with. And we give our several referrals, and we ask them to go talk to those referrals and see who they connect best with, because it's important to trust the people that you're working with. It is. And who better to trust than if you're coming from one of us as a referral, that we already know that you can trust them, and they've worked with us before, so they know, at least with me, they know how anal I am about my clients' privacy and for sure, and all of the documentation that we're submitting. So and I know that we have older parents, right? Some of us have senior parents. Getting these referrals is important. You
It
know,
is.
like getting that real estate agent already on board, getting that CPA on board, making sure that you know their financial advisor. That's another person.
Oh, that's the fifth person.
Yeah, that's another person that you should know how to contact.
Yes.
And your family, your loved ones really need to share that with you if you're playing a potential role in their estate plan later.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. So we've talked about having an estate planning attorney, such as Sabrina Winters. We've talked about having a realtor. We've talked about having an appraiser. We've talked about having specialists, meaning people that can help you with personal property belongings and things. And then the fifth person is the financial advisor.
And we did CPA as well.
And we did CPA. So actually 6 people. You know, if you have questions, right, we are here to help you. Sabrina and I have both, Sabrina has an amazing story, by the way. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, please do. She's got an amazing story about the background that got her into this line of work. And I know that we have both lost loved ones and been through this process. So we are, so we're here to help you. We're here to help you navigate the ins and outs of things and help get you connected with the best people. So thank you so much.